Hello, everyone. Welcome to KidLit Meet and Greet. I'm April Berry, and today I'm talking with Marie Walano, who I am
Hi.
delighted to meet face to face because we've texted a couple of times and we've
Yes.
emailed a couple of times, but we've never actually spoke.
Yes.
So, Rose, welcome.
Thank you so much, April. Hi.
Hi. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Rose. I am a aspiring picture book author. I my day job is journalism. I am a lifestyle journalist. I've written for lots of different magazines through the years. Cosmo, InStyle, Town and Country. But I've always wanted to write books, and the last couple of years finally made me, I guess, brave enough to try, and or crazy enough to try, and so that is where I'm at. I suppose I started taking it. Let's see, seriously, wanting to, like I said, I've always wanted to do it, but I've really like sat down, buckled down, taken the classes, started to do the work maybe like 2.5 years ago or so. And I was lucky enough to get an agent last year, the amazing Christy McGill at the Cat Agency. And now I'm on sub with all of my fingers and toes crossed for something hopefully good coming in the future. So that's me.
Nice. How did you come to set your sights on becoming a KidLit author? Seems like a bit
Oh,
of a jump from journalism to KidLit.
it's funny. I journalism in and of itself is all storytelling. It's finding characters, whether public figures that we all know, or sort of hidden figures, so to speak, that we might not know as well, but whose story we really should know. And I feel that my training in journalism kind of made it almost a surprisingly natural leap to tell other stories. Although fiction is my favorite, but I've also been working on a few different nonfiction picture books as well, and that is there's definitely the direct through line there that personally makes me really happy to actually be able to use a bit of what I did for many years, what I still do, and put it to use in a very different way, and to me, quietly, a more exciting way. Because you do get to be a little bit more creative, a little bit more playful, and of course, the pairing of the imagery with the story as well, I think makes it such a beautiful medium. And I mean, I love all genres, I love all age groups, I love YA a lot as well, and I'd love to sort of slide into that category in the future too. But yeah, I think to me, everything I've been doing has kind of been a form of storytelling. And I think KidLit in particular is just such a wonderful, beautiful, whimsical, magical genre to be in. So it's my favorite thing to read. So it's where I was what I gravitated towards when it was time to write. So
It makes sense to me.
yeah.
Um, so you signed with Christy about a year ago, you said.
I did, yes.
What do you like best about working with her?
Oh, so many things. Christy is one, she's a very editorial agent, which I love. I love getting all of the feedback from her, and really feedback on anything. She is so wonderful, even when I'm just like, I have this like weird fragment of an idea. I haven't, I'm not even there on the manuscript front yet, but I have like sort of an idea, and she's so encouraging, and she always comes back with ideas and suggestions that make me immediately go, oh yes, obviously that makes the story better. And sometimes even before, like I said, I even get into it, I then know where I'm going. She's so helpful in that respect, and she, from a professional standpoint, she's so organized. She is truly on top of everything in such an amazing way. She is a spreadsheet goddess. I feel like any of the information that I could possibly want at any given time, she has it, and I love that. I uh, I don't know if I would necessarily call myself particularly type A, but there are little things that I can be, and that sort of thing she scratches that itch for me for. And beyond that, she's just really sweet, and she herself is a writer, so she gets it, and that makes everything easier too. I feel very, very
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah, I imagine that would be very helpful. And also, I love people that are good with spreadsheets. I'm not, but I
Yes.
love a good
Me
spreadsheet.
either, me
I'm always like, how did they create that?
either.
How can I do
I'm
that for
like, what is that
myself?
formula?
Right, exactly. I just learned how to do drop downs on spreadsheets a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Ooh, this is cool."
Okay, you're speaking a language I don't even know. I don't want
Oh,
dropped out of this spreadsheet.
oh, see, you and
I'm like color coordination. That's where I'm at on my Excel sheets.
see, we need more Christies in our lives.
Yes, we do. Christy saved the world, truly.
If you could share one piece of advice with writers in the querying or submission trenches, what
Yeah.
would that one piece be?
Oh,
Ooh,
be brave. I
love that.
feel, I feel like that's a bit vague, but for me at least personally, when I was lucky enough to connect with Christy, it was through a Twitter pitch party, and it was the first one I think it was the first one I'd ever actually tried. And I'd see them online and they kind of made me nervous. Not that I'm like socially illiterate, but I'm just like, oh, what a thing to put your ideas out there on the internet
Mhm.
and hope that nobody will take them or, what have you. Not that I think that my ideas are so one of a kind that like, but the trust that you sort of have to put out there in the world. And then also separately, the trust you have to put in yourself that you are ready, like your story is ready, you've done the time, and you can now make this leap. I think it takes a lot of courage. At least it felt that way to me at the time, to build up to get to that point where I could be like, okay, I'm just going to try this and see what
Yeah,
happens. And yeah, I think, again, you do have to feel ready, do the work, write the story, edit the story to absolute depth, share with your critique partners, all of that. But once it's there and it's ready, um, feel, if you can, brave enough to make the leap to go to the next step, and try your best because you will inevitably, most likely, maybe not, but you will find lots of no's along the way. But sort of being brave enough to know that that's coming, to endure that, and know that every no is hopefully leading one day to a yes, I think, is the best thing that you can do for yourself as an author.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think it requires a lot of bravery.
To me, it feels that way.
Hmm. Me too, especially querying. That was really hard for me.
Yes, you're really just like putting it out there in the ether, hoping for the best,
Right.
not knowing what the response will be or if you'll get a response at all.
Yeah.
But the worst thing that can happen is a no, right? Or so I
Hmm.
tell myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the
And your
worst.
broken heart shattering into a million pieces along
I
the
know.
way. But
I'm always like, they crushed my soul.
you're just a little thing like a no after you shared, the story of your heart with someone that you
Hmm.
thought would be the perfect match. But that's just the worst that can happen. So like don't feel, too stressed about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're into picture books. You're a
Yes.
journalist. Are there other
Yes.
genres that interest you in writing?
Yes. I definitely I recently started lightly outlining a YA book, based on sort of a couple ideas that I had spinning in my head for a while. And it was funny, on my way to an SCBWI conference like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was driving down with nothing but the open road and my brain to keep me company, and everything sort of crystallized for me. So or at least it felt that way. We'll see once I actually have the outline and then start writing if it actually makes any sense or it's just the
Mhm.
fever dream of being on the road for 4 hours at a time. But it's a long-winded answer to a question to say yes, I would really also love to get into YA. And I would really also, I say this and I have absolutely no idea how to go about this, but I would love to get into graphic novels. Um,
Ooh.
I have no illustration skill whatsoever, so that would not be my contribution to the novel. But I fell in love. I've read graphic novels on and off for years, but I fell in love with Rachel Smith's Lore Olympus about a year ago,
Mhm.
and it just took me into a whole another world of all graphic novels all the time, which I was like, I don't know if this is the best for me if I'm also trying to write a novel, because now I'm just focused on dialogue. But I was so swept up in it. I loved it so much. And it feels also like a very natural extension of the picture book world in that it's the
Right.
combination of story and image. And so again, I'm not exactly sure how to go about doing that. I know the structure is completely different, but I'm starting to learn a little bit about that as well. So fingers crossed in the future, those are two other directions I may hopefully also expand into.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen a lot of webinars and classes offered around graphic novels lately.
Yes, I
So it's nice. There's a
agree.
lot of resources out there now.
Yes, I think the interest is definitely high, which
Hmm.
also means the competition's about to be very high. But apparently, I like a
You've got
challenge.
this,
So
Rose. You've got this.
thank you.
Where do you get your ideas from?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, really everywhere. I know that's a ridiculous answer, but it could be, you know, fairy tales, mythology, sometimes just walking around. I got to visit France about a year ago and I was visiting Versailles and I went into one of Marie Antoinette's like little chateaus on the property and there was a little ladybug walking along just like one little ledge in this otherwise beautiful opulent home and I was like, oh, she's obviously the queen of this palace. And sometimes like it's like that, you see a ladybug on a ledge and you think I have a whole story for her. It can really be as random as that. But yeah, I think a little bit of everywhere. And if I'm feeling completely uninspired, which fortunately I have a very adventurous imagination, so that doesn't happen too often. Not to say the story always comes together quickly, but the ideas swirl.
Right.
I think just sometimes going back to art that I love, or movies that I love. I'm a Disney adult. I'll admit that freely, and sometimes just putting on an old Disney movie that I love, or a musical, or getting to see. I live close to New York City, so about like 45 minutes outside the city, so I get to go into museums a fair amount, and seeing a new exhibit can be really inspiring. So yeah, really just all over the place.
All over. Inspiration is everywhere.
Inspiration is everywhere.
I like it. That's what we'll name this episode.
Yay.
What kind of atmosphere do you like to have when you write?
Oh, hmm. Quiet-ish. Um, I say that, but I also quiet-ish. Okay, so I like a good coffee shop. Because that to me also feels quiet, even when it's loud, and that it's mostly white noise, and I'm not specifically dialed into any one specific sound, which feels nice. And I always feel like other people being productive around me feels like we're all at this together. Um, but sometimes I'm just home by myself at my kitchen table with my dog sleeping on the couch across from me, and it's just a very peaceful scene. And I'm like, yeah, this is a great
This sounds
time to
very
be.
cozy. I want you
It's
to have a
very
cup of
cozy.
tea. I want you to
I
have a cup of
always
tea
have
with
a
it
cup of
and a
tea.
fire going in the fireplace.
1000%. Exactly that. I have a fireplace, but it's an electric fireplace, which I love. As much as I love the idea of like going out and just chopping the wood. The idea that like I can turn it on really any time of the year and set that to even if it's just like 10 minutes and be like, oh, now we've created this cozy atmosphere. And always lots of hydration nearby. Lots of hydration nearby. So that's really the number one requirement. I can write in a lot of places if you give me a little treat.
What's your favorite type of hydration for?
Oh, tea, probably tea. I start almost every day with a very large cup of iced tea. I today it was Dunkin'. But yeah, tea is usually the thing that I'm drinking throughout the day. It gets warmer as the day goes on. It's like ice cold first thing in the morning to wake me up, and then like as we get to the afternoon, it gets warmer and warmer and warmer. Um, yeah, I would say that's the number one thing I'm sipping throughout the day.
That's funny. I feel like it's opposite of what most people start with
Yeah.
the hot coffee and then they end up with the cold beverages by the end of the day.
This
You're an
to like a cold
interesting person,
shower.
Rose Walano. You're very interesting.
It's like a cold shower first thing in the morning. I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm here. I'm ready to go.
What do you like best about writing?
Oh, hmm. All the places you can go.
Love that.
I love to travel, of course, over the past, 4 years. None of us have been able to travel as much as we may have before. And maybe that was also part of me starting to feel like I had to get these stories down as opposed to like doodling a little here, doodling a little there. One day I'll get to it. I think it was such a form of escape for me
Mhm.
personally and just let me really travel the world when I couldn't. It's the same reason I love to read too, to just go to places that are not necessarily right outside my front door. So yeah.
Nice. So you write, you're a journalist. Sounds like you enjoy art and theater. Do you have
Do-
other creative outlets and hobbies that we should know about?
Not many. Writing is really, it's yeah,
It's kind of
it sounds
all
like the one
consuming.
skill set. It is all consuming. That is true. It takes up a lot of your time. Since it's also what I do for my day job, it really takes up a lot of my time. But creative pursuits. I have a very light interest is like constantly evolving in interior design, which I am by no means an expert on this in any means, and really only just catering to my own specific interests. But um, my husband and I moved out of the city in 2020, kind of not so long after the pandemic started, and we moved into a house in the suburbs, and being able to sort of play around and decorate multiple rooms for the first time and play with
Mhm.
color and fabric and art and all of that kind of thing, and how to somehow store all of the books that I continue to buy instead of getting a Kindle or a Nook or what have you, has been an endless exercise in creativity. But yeah, but on the internet, no, it probably is just writing. I think that's my only skill set in this world. If that is even my true skill set. So that's it, unfortunately.
You're funny. I see your color coordinated bookshelves behind you.
Yes, no,
I'm
and I know that's controversial. People, organizing their books by color. I know there are
oh,
feelings about it on the internet. I'm sorry in advance if you're someone who's watching this who's like, you're not a real reader or a writer because you're organizing your books by colors. I get it. But I do actually, I hate to say this, but sometimes I remember the cover more than I even think
mhm.
of the author's name, which
Yeah. I
I don't
do
know
mine
what
by
that
color
says. But
too, for the most
do
part,
you?
except for I have one shelf that's just random, which is the one of that's showing in the background, of course. But
I love that book, by the way. The Rabbit Listens. I
yeah,
love
I
that.
just got it. I just purchased it this week. I was like, I'm going to put that up for this week's interview.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I checked it out from the library like 4 times. And I thought maybe it's time to buy this for myself.
I hear that.
Um, any particular projects that you're super excited about right now?
Ooh, let's see. I'm on sub with a couple of stories. I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about any of them. But some of them, I will say this, some of them have a fashion focus, which has
Ooh.
been fun for me because that's kind of where I got my start in journalism. It's been a lifelong interest, but it's where I got my start in journalism. I was on the fashion news team at InStyle, and I've written about fashion through the years, and it's something that I love so much. The color, the creativity, the ability to, kind of create one's identity, choosing what you're dressed with every day.
Hmm.
So much about it that I adore. So I've been really excited. There's two projects that I'm working on, one that's currently on sub, but that have that fashion focus and sort of trying to take the life of a few designers who I really adore and spin them in a way that hopefully is interesting to kids who could be reading about it one day.
So
Um,
cool.
yeah, so that's exciting for me.
Yeah, that's exciting for me too. I'm excited for them.
Thank you. Hopefully, they will see the light of day.
Do you have any advice? What advice would you give to someone that's brand new to writing, just starting out?
Ooh. Hmm. Maybe two things. Um, One, and this is not revolutionary by any means, but I feel even as someone who does it both professionally and for fun, you are not always in the mood to write. And that doesn't make you less of a writer. But sometimes to get the work done, you have to kind of force yourself. And sometimes when you force yourself is when I feel, you can probably speak to this too, the juices start coming and everything starts rolling and you're excited to see that something actually clicked and you might keep going. I've had plenty of stories where I feel like I've sat and I've mulled on them a little too long. And then one day I'm like, today I need to write, whatever portion of this. And then once you start, I feel it just keeps rolling naturally more often than not. So I'd say even when you might feel exhausted by writing or tired or nervous that you can't get this story to come together quite right and sort of keep it at arm's length for a little bit, go do it anyway and see what happens. I think you'll surprise yourself. And I'd say
Good
part two
advice.
is, yeah, I hope. And then I'd say part two of that is if you really still can't figure it out, go take a walk. I believed in this beforehand, but I actually recently went with my mother-in-law to a seminar with Joyce Carol Oates. And she said that she tells that to her students all the time. If you cannot figure out what to write, or specifically, if you can't figure out how to end a story, go take a walk and don't come back till you've come to the conclusion of where the story should end.
Three
And
days
for
later, you come back
the,
home.
as I say, for me specifically, I could be walking for a while, but I do think that even if you don't quite get to the end of your story, inevitably just letting your body move and the blood flow and getting some fresh air will definitely bring something new to your brain. So if all is lost, take a walk.
I think those are both excellent pieces of advice. They both work for me too. So
So you've got two people who are behind this, at least.
yes, yes. If April and Rose think so, then that must be how it goes.
It's now a fact. So take a walk, get your steps in. And
So, Rose, can you tell us something that you are obsessed with these days?
oh, um, hmm. I feel like I already alluded to this a little bit, but graphic novels really are something that I have become increasingly obsessed with over the past year. Like I said, my introduction to that really was Lore Olympus, which just ended this past Sunday, and I just like the book hangover is real. But through Lore Olympus, I discovered Webtoon, And I know I'm very slow and I'm behind on that, but in discovering it, I found all of these new stories, which I was obsessed with in many different genres, among many different age groups. I love the Cursed Princess Club. I love, there's a newer one called Mafia Nanny that I think is so much fun. I
I
just
love
think,
the for title alone.
I know, I was like, well, I'm in. And the art is stunning. And I was just drawn right into it. And I think that's what's so fun about so many of these graphic novels, especially on Webtoon. Some of the concepts I feel like on paper sound a little bit wild, which often make, of course, for the best books. But you like Mafia Nanny, but you get into it, and it's just I think so many of these stories are so out of the box that it feels like a real fresh breath of air. And a lot of them are in small little chapters, so you can just get away if you want to have a little break, read a chapter or two, and let's say 10 minutes, and go back to your day. Um, it also helps that I think they mostly release weekly. So even if, unless you find an older one that has many chapters, which I have, and that has taken some days away from me. But if you're following a new one and it's only coming out, once a week, that's not too much of a time commitment, but it feels like a little treat every time you get to the day of the week it's released and you're like, oh, it's a new episode of Mafia Nanny. So so I would say that's definitely among my top obsessions, along with, Taylor Swift is always there. I am following the new chapters of the Eras tour, wanting to go.
Like all the rest of America.
Like all the rest of America. Now Europe is getting to enjoy it. And I'm like, that sounds like a very fun reason to travel, very expensive reason to travel. But
Right.
so yeah, that is what is filling my day at the moment. That and my dog.
Fair enough. And then one oddball question for you. If
Sure.
you could be any animal, what animal would you be?
Oh, that's a good question.
Ooh, I've stumped her.
You have.
I've
Oh
stumped
gosh.
the picture book author.
You did. I love animals so much. It's hard to decide. What do I embody, if anything? Hmm. I feel like maybe something small and mischievous.
Like a ladybug in a palace.
Like maybe a ladybug in a palace, maybe a chipmunk, many of which are like living in my backyard rent free currently.
Mhm.
But oh gosh, I maybe a giraffe. Actually, that's the opposite of small and mischievous, but I just adore a giraffe so much. I think they're so beautiful and so funny. And yeah, if from pure love alone, even if I at 5'4" do not embody a giraffe by any means, I think maybe that's what I'll go with.
The thing I like about giraffes is you look at them and you think they would be awkward, but they're actually quite elegant, I feel like.
Oh, so elegant. So the way that they move is just, I don't know how they're doing it with such a long neck, but I'm like, how did you
Mhm.
come to be?
Well, Rose, this has been delightful to talk in person instead of by text or email.
Yes, I know. I know. It's so nice to look at your face while talking to you.
Can you tell everyone that's viewing where they're most likely to find you online?
Sure. I do have a website, rosemariewalano.com. It has more journalism work than book information at the moment, but I hope that changes one day. Otherwise, I am on Twitter at Rosemarie Walano. But I am probably most present on Instagram, and that is at Rosie, Rosie Walano. Um, yeah, so that's where you can find me.
Excellent. We will find you for sure. Thanks so much for coming on and for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah. And I guess we'll sign off.
Okay.
Thanks, Rose.
Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.